The desert was silent except for the sound of the wind moving over the endless dunes. The sun hung high, turning the golden sand into waves of heat. In the middle of that vast emptiness, a group of humans worked with shovels, brushes, and machines. They were not soldiers or treasure hunters. They were archaeologists searching for secrets hidden under the sands for thousands of years. Dr. Amir, the leader of the team, stood with a map in his hands. He was a tall man with calm eyes, known for his patience and focus. He had studied the desert for many years, following strange markings that did not match normal history. His team trusted him because he always believed that every piece of sand could hide a story. Beside him was Nadia, the youngest member of the team. She was full of energy, always asking questions, and never afraid to get her hands dirty. She loved history, but she also loved adventure. For her, this dig was more than research. It was a chance to be part of something great. Their work site was not an ordinary place. For weeks, they had been digging at the edge of a dune where unusual stones appeared. These stones were not like those used in normal pyramids. They were smoother, harder, and had marks that looked almost like stars. Nadia had been the first to notice them. She had told Dr. Amir that the pattern reminded her of constellations. At first, the others laughed, saying it was just decoration. But Dr. Amir took her seriously. Now, after days of work, the sand had begun to reveal the shape of a hidden pyramid. "This is not on any record," Dr. Amir said softly, staring at the tip of the buried structure. His voice carried both wonder and caution. "No map, no text, no ancient scroll speaks of this pyramid. It is as if it was erased from history." The team worked harder. They brushed away the sand carefully, fearing that too much force would break the delicate stones. Hours turned into days, and the pyramid began to rise before their eyes. It was smaller than the Great Pyramids of Giza, but it had a strange power. Its sides were sharper, and its stones shined faintly even under layers of dust. The symbols on its surface looked less like writing and more like a code of stars. Nadia felt her heart race when she touched one of the symbols. The stone was warm, not cold like normal rock. She pulled back quickly. "Dr. Amir," she said, "the stone feels alive." He walked to her side and placed his hand on the same spot. For a moment, his calm face changed. He felt the faint vibration too. He said nothing to the others, but in his eyes, there was a spark of worry. Something about this pyramid was not natural. By the fourth week, the team uncovered the entrance. It was sealed with a massive slab that looked impossible to move. But at the center of the slab was a golden circle with strange carvings. The carvings were not in the shape of animals or humans, but in lines that twisted like rivers across the surface. Dr. Amir studied it carefully. He realized that the carvings were not random. They matched the same star pattern found on the outer stones. It was like a map of the sky. That night, as the team rested by their tents, Nadia could not sleep. She kept thinking of the golden circle and the strange warmth of the stones. The desert was quiet, but in her heart, she felt that something inside the pyramid was waiting. She walked back to the sealed entrance and looked at it under the moonlight. To her surprise, the carvings glowed faintly when the moon touched them. She gasped, her eyes wide with amazement. It was as if the pyramid itself was breathing under the stars. The next morning, she told Dr. Amir what she had seen. The others doubted her, saying she was tired and imagining things. But Dr. Amir believed her. He called the team together and said, "We will open it today. But we must be careful. This is not like any other tomb. We do not know what we are dealing with." It took hours of effort to move the slab. At first it did not shift at all. Then, when the sun was directly above, the golden circle lit up as if touched by fire. The slab trembled, and slowly, it slid aside on its own. The entrance opened, releasing a gust of cold air that carried the scent of dust, stone, and something ancient that none of them could describe. The team looked at one another in silence. They all felt the same shiver. Inside, the passage was narrow and dark. Dr. Amir lit a torch and stepped in first. Nadia followed close behind him, her excitement greater than her fear. The walls of the passage were smooth, as if carved by machines rather than human hands. Strange lines of silver ran along the walls, like veins glowing faintly in the dark. The team whispered among themselves, wondering how such a structure could exist in a pyramid older than history. After many steps, they reached a chamber. It was round, with a high ceiling that shimmered faintly as if the stones had stars inside them. At the center lay a single sarcophagus. It was not made of stone like the ones they had seen before. It was black, polished, and looked more like metal than rock. Around it were golden cloths and broken pieces of crystal. On the floor, symbols glowed faintly, arranged in circles that looked almost like a machine. Nadia stepped closer, her heart beating fast. She brushed the dust from the surface of the sarcophagus. The touch sent a chill up her arm. "This is not from our world," she whispered without thinking. The others froze. Her words echoed in the silent chamber. Dr. Amir placed his hand on the strange metal coffin. It was warm, just like the stones outside. He turned to his team, his face filled with both awe and fear. "This is no ordinary mummy," he said. "This is something far older and greater than we imagined." For a long moment, no one moved. The desert above them was silent, but deep inside the pyramid, a faint sound began to rise. It was like a pulse, slow and steady, coming from within the sarcophagus. The team stepped back, their eyes wide, their hearts racing. Nadia whispered, almost too quietly for the others to hear. "It is not sleeping. It is waiting." The chamber was silent except for the faint pulse that came from the black sarcophagus. Each beat echoed through the floor and into the bones of the humans standing there. It was not loud, yet it filled the air with a strange weight. The team looked at one another, their faces pale in the torchlight. Dr. Amir kept his torch raised. His eyes never left the strange coffin. He had studied tombs all his life, but nothing in his books had prepared him for this moment. "We must remain calm," he said, though his voice shook slightly. "We are here to learn. Fear will blind us." Nadia stood beside him, her eyes wide. She had always dreamed of finding something extraordinary, but now that she stood before it, her heart pounded with both excitement and fear. The sarcophagus seemed alive, as if it had been waiting for them all along. One of the workers, a man named Yusef, stepped back nervously. "Doctor, this is not right," he whispered. "No mummy should still have a heartbeat." "It is not a heartbeat," Amir answered, though he was not fully sure of his own words. "It is energy. We must understand it." He motioned for Nadia to bring her lantern closer. The light revealed faint lines across the surface of the sarcophagus. They were glowing symbols, the same kind as those carved on the outer stones of the pyramid. They pulsed with each beat, like veins carrying life through the coffin. Nadia touched one of the glowing marks carefully. The instant her fingers brushed it, the entire chamber brightened. Silver lines on the walls flared to life, filling the room with soft light. Everyone gasped. The sarcophagus gave a low hum, and the lid began to shift. "Step back," Amir ordered quickly. His voice was firm this time. "Everyone back." The workers retreated to the edges of the chamber. Nadia, however, stayed near, unable to pull her eyes away. The lid of the sarcophagus slid open without anyone touching it. Cold mist rose into the air, curling like smoke. Inside lay the figure of a man, but he was not like any mummy they had seen before. His skin was bronze but smooth, not dry or broken like old remains. His body was wrapped in thin golden cloth, and beneath it, his form was tall and strong. What shocked them most were his eyes. They opened slowly, glowing faintly with blue light. The team froze in disbelief. The mummy was alive. He sat up with calm strength, the golden cloth falling away from his shoulders. His movements were not weak like a man waking from death, but graceful, almost like he had simply been resting. He looked at the humans one by one, his glowing eyes unreadable. A deep voice came from his lips, speaking words none of them knew. The language was strange, filled with sounds that rolled like thunder and rang like metal. The workers looked at each other in confusion. But Dr. Amir's tablet, still running its language program from earlier translations of hieroglyphs, began to process the sound. To their shock, words appeared on the screen. "I am Kale," the voice said through the device. "Guardian of the gate. Keeper of the stars." The humans gasped. Nadia felt her breath catch in her throat. "He can speak," she whispered. "He understands us." Kale tilted his head, as if listening to their hearts more than their voices. Then he spoke again, this time slower, shaping his words with effort. "You, humans. You wake me. Why?" Dr. Amir stepped forward, bowing slightly. "We are explorers. We found your resting place by chance. We mean no harm." Kale's glowing eyes studied him for a long moment. "Long ago, I chose the sleep. I waited for a time when humans were ready. But you have found me sooner than expected." His words carried a weight that filled the chamber. Nadia felt chills. "Who are you truly?" she asked. "You are not a pharaoh." Kale placed his hand on the edge of the sarcophagus and stood to his full height. He was taller than any of them, his presence both strange and powerful. The golden cloth clung to him like it was part of his body. He looked at the walls of the chamber, at the glowing symbols, then back to the humans. "I am not your king," he said slowly. "I am not of this world. I came from the sky, in a time when Earth was young. I fought to protect this planet from those who sought to take it. When the war ended, I stayed. I built this place to guard what must never be forgotten." The chamber trembled softly, as if his words carried power that reached into the stone itself. The humans were silent. They had studied myths of gods who came from the heavens, but none had imagined meeting one face to face. Dr. Amir swallowed hard. "If you are not from Earth, then why are you here? Why rest in this pyramid?" Kale's eyes dimmed slightly, as if in sorrow. "Because I was not only a warrior. I was also the last of my kind here. My people left, but I remained to watch over humanity. I swore to sleep until you were ready to rise among the stars. But now, you have awakened me. It is too soon." Nadia stepped closer, unable to hold back her curiosity. "Too soon for what?" Kale looked at her, his expression unreadable. "The beacon has been touched. When you opened this tomb, its signal rose again. My enemies will hear it. They will come. And Earth must be ready, or it will fall." The words struck the humans like a hammer. Enemies. Signal. War. These were not things they had expected to find in the heart of an ancient pyramid. The torch flames flickered as the chamber seemed to breathe with new energy. The silver lines along the walls pulsed brighter. Machines hidden in the stone began to hum softly. It was as if the entire pyramid was waking along with its guardian. Dr. Amir turned to his team. Their faces were pale with fear, but also lit with awe. This discovery was beyond history, beyond archaeology. It was a truth that could change everything humans knew about themselves. Kale stepped out of the sarcophagus. His feet touched the glowing floor, and the symbols shifted under him, forming new patterns. He raised his hand, and part of the wall slid open, revealing another chamber filled with faint blue light. Inside were shapes covered in dust, shapes that looked like machines or vessels far beyond human design. Nadia's eyes widened. "This is not just a tomb. This is a vault. Kale nodded. Yes. A vault of knowledge. A place of warning. And now, it is open. The team stood in silence, torn between fear and wonder. They had awakened something far greater than a forgotten mummy. They had awakened a guardian who spoke of enemies among the stars. And somewhere far above, beyond the desert sky, something unseen had already begun to listen. The chamber glowed with soft blue light as Kale led the humans into the newly opened hall. Dust hung in the air, swirling around like mist, but beneath it the room shined with strange designs. The walls were smooth metal instead of stone, and the floor was marked with glowing circles that seemed alive. The humans followed quietly, their footsteps echoing in the great chamber. Nadia could not keep her eyes still. Everywhere she looked, she saw things that no history book had ever shown. There were tall pillars that gave off a faint hum, tables made of crystal, and objects shaped like stars locked inside glass. She felt as if she had stepped into another world. Dr. Amir kept his notebook open, though his hand shook as he tried to sketch. His voice was steady but filled with awe. "This is not Egyptian," he whispered. "This is not even human." Kale walked to the center of the room where a large round device stood. Its surface was black but filled with lines of silver that glowed brighter as he touched it. The machine came alive, sending light into the air above. A giant map appeared, a map of stars and planets spread like a sea of jewels. The humans gasped. It was not the night sky they knew. It was larger, deeper, filled with thousands of points they had never seen. Some stars were marked with glowing symbols, and some were circled as if chosen for a purpose. "This," Kale said slowly, his deep voice calm, "is the record of my people. We came from far among the stars, from a world that no longer exists. We traveled to many places, guiding young civilizations, protecting them from the darkness that hunts across the galaxy." Nadia stared at the floating stars. "You mean Earth was visited before? By your people?" Kale nodded. "Yes. Long before your written history. We came not as rulers, but as guardians. We taught some of your ancestors simple knowledge, how to build, how to watch the stars, how to grow stronger. Some called us gods. But we were never gods. We were only travelers." The words settled heavily on the humans. Dr. Amir felt his heart beat faster. For years he had wondered about the strange mysteries in Egypt, the sudden rise of knowledge, the unexplained stories of beings from the sky. Now he stood before proof. "But if you were guardians," Amir asked, "then what happened? Why hide here in sleep?" Kale's eyes dimmed with memory. "Because of the Zirath." The name echoed across the chamber like a shadow. "They are a race born for conquest," Kale explained. "Long ago, they saw Earth as a young world, easy to take. They came in ships of fire, and they sought to chain your kind. My people fought them. The battle raged across your skies, and in the end, we won. But the cost was great. My people left this planet to heal and rebuild elsewhere. I chose to remain. I swore to guard Earth, even if it meant sleeping for ages." The humans listened in silence. The weight of his story pressed on their hearts. Nadia finally asked, her voice soft, "And now that we woke you, does it mean the Zirath will return?" Kale's gaze turned to the glowing star map. One corner of the map flashed red, as if answering her question. "Yes," he said firmly. "When you opened the seal, the beacon lit once more. The Zirath have eyes that see across the stars. They will hear it. They will come." The chamber grew quiet. Even the hum of the machines felt heavier. One of the workers stepped forward, his voice trembling. "If they come, what chance do we have? We are not warriors. We are only people with tools and machines for digging." Kale looked at him with calm strength. "Do not think little of yourselves. Humans are more than you believe. You are quick to learn, quick to adapt, and filled with courage. It is why I stayed. It is why I believed your kind could one day rise among the stars. His words gave a spark of hope. Nadia's fear shifted into determination. She turned to Amir. If what he says is true, then this pyramid is not just history. It is a warning and a gift. We must understand it, or we will never be ready. Amir nodded slowly. His mind raced with the weight of the discovery. Yes. We cannot hide this. But we must be careful. The world will not believe us easily. Kale moved toward another wall. He placed his palm on it, and the surface opened like a door. Behind it lay a chamber filled with strange devices. Some looked like weapons, others like tools. At the center stood a tall frame covered with cloth. Kale pulled the cloth aside, revealing what looked like the skeleton of a ship, small but sleek, with wings that folded like the blades of a bird. This is one of the last vessels of my people, Kale said. It sleeps as I slept. If it flies again, it can defend this world. But it needs power, and it needs hands willing to guide it. The humans stepped closer, their eyes wide with wonder. To them, it was more than a machine. It was proof that humanity's future was larger than Earth itself. Nadia touched the edge of the vessel gently. So this is what you were guarding. Not treasure. Not gold. But knowledge and strength. Yes, Kale replied. Gold fades. Stones crumble. But knowledge lasts. I gave my sleep to keep it safe. Now, I give it to you. You must choose what to do. The weight of his words filled the air. The humans looked at one another. They had come searching for history, but they had found responsibility. Suddenly, the map above shifted again. Another red light appeared, brighter than before. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Kale's face hardened. They have seen the beacon, he said. The Zirith are already moving. Fear swept over the humans. They were standing on the edge of something greater than they could imagine. But at the same time, Nadia felt a spark inside her chest. The desert no longer felt silent. It felt like the center of the universe. She looked at Kale and spoke with quiet strength. Then we cannot waste time. If they are coming, we must be ready. Kale studied her for a moment, then nodded. His glowing eyes softened, filled with respect. You are young, but your spirit is strong. Perhaps humanity is more ready than even I believed. The chamber around them hummed louder, as if the pyramid itself agreed. The humans stood within the heart of a secret buried for thousands of years, knowing that the truth of the pyramid was not death, but the beginning of a new chapter for Earth. And far beyond the sky, in the dark sea of stars, something stirred in answer to the beacon's call. The desert sun burned bright over the endless sands, but deep inside the hidden pyramid, the humans no longer felt heat. Their hearts were heavy with Kale's warning. The beacon had been lit. The Zirith had seen it. They were coming. Dr. Amir stood at the star map, his eyes locked on the red lights that pulsed across its surface. They looked far at first, but each flash grew brighter, like footsteps drawing closer. His mind raced with fear and questions. He was a man of science, not war. He had no army, no weapons strong enough to fight a race from the stars. Beside him, Nadia clenched her fists. Fear swirled inside her, but stronger than fear was a growing fire. She had always dreamed of discovering something beyond history, something that proved humans were not small. Now she stood at the heart of that dream, but the cost was danger. She looked at Kale, her voice steady though her heart beat fast. When will they arrive? Kale's glowing eyes studied the map. His face was calm, but his voice carried weight. Soon. They travel faster than light, carried by engines made for conquest. When they see the beacon rise, they do not wait. They strike. Yusef, one of the workers, spoke with trembling lips. Then we must run. We must hide. We are not ready to fight creatures from the sky. Kale turned to him, tall and steady. You cannot run. The Zirith do not ignore worlds. If they come, they will take what they want. They do not leave survivors. If Earth is to survive, you must stand. The chamber fell silent. The humans looked at one another. They had come as diggers, thinkers, and seekers of history. None of them had come as soldiers. Yet now, they stood on the edge of a war none of them could have imagined. Dr. Amir straightened his back. He had spent his life searching for truths buried under sand, never for battle. But in Kale's words he heard no choice. He placed his hand firmly on the table. If we must stand, then we will. Humanity has faced many storms. We will face this one too. Nadia nodded quickly, her eyes shining with fire. We cannot hide forever. If they come to take Earth, then we fight. Even if we are small, we must show them what humans are. Kale's eyes softened. You speak with courage. That is why I believed in your kind. The pyramid seemed to sense their choice. The walls glowed brighter, and the hidden machines hummed louder, as if preparing for what was to come. Kale walked to the chamber of weapons and placed his hand on the wall. The surface slid open, revealing shelves filled with strange devices. Some looked like staffs of light, others like shields made of crystal. Dust had covered them for centuries, but their glow returned as Kale touched them. These are tools of my people, Kale said. They are not easy to use, but they are strong. With them, you may fight. You must learn quickly, for time is short. Nadia picked up one of the crystal staffs. It was light in her hand, yet it hummed with power. She pressed a button near its handle, and a line of pure light extended from its tip, shining bright like a blade. She gasped, both afraid and amazed. Amir picked up a smaller device shaped like a ring. When he pressed its center, a shield of blue light spread around his arm. His face was stern, but his eyes carried awe. These are not tools of the past, he said quietly. They are weapons of the future. Kale nodded. And now they belong to you. Hours passed as Kale showed them how to hold, move, and focus with the weapons. The humans were clumsy at first, dropping tools or pressing the wrong parts. But slowly, they began to learn. Nadia showed quick hands and sharp eyes, catching the rhythm of the staff as if it were an extension of her arm. Amir moved carefully, his shield glowing strong each time he raised it. Even Yusef, though afraid, found courage when the weapon obeyed his touch. By the time night fell, the team was sweating, their bodies sore, but their spirits higher than before. They had touched something greater than shovels and brushes. They had touched power, and with it, responsibility. As the humans trained, Kale sat at the star map. His eyes glowed faintly, but his face was hard. He could feel the Zirith moving closer. His strength was still weak from centuries of sleep. Alone, he could not face them. But watching the humans, he felt something rise in him that he had not felt in ages. Hope. The next morning, the desert shook. The humans rushed out of the pyramid, shielding their eyes from the bright sun. The sky, once empty, now held shadows. Something massive floated high above, blocking the light. A ship, dark and sharp, hovered like a predator waiting to strike. The humans gasped. It was larger than any building they had seen, its surface covered with glowing red lines. It made no sound, yet the air trembled under its presence. Nadia's breath caught. They are here. The ship descended slowly, casting a long shadow across the sands. Then, with a flash of light, smaller vessels broke away from it, rushing toward the ground like hawks diving on prey. Kale's face hardened. The Zirith have arrived. Dust rose as the smaller ships landed near the pyramid. Their doors opened, and figures stepped out. They were tall, armored, with sharp edges built into their suits. Their helmets glowed red, and their movements were cold and perfect, like machines of war. One of them raised a device that translated its voice into harsh, metallic words. This world belongs to the Zirith. You will kneel, or you will be broken. The humans froze, their fear heavy. They had expected something strange, but the sight of the invaders was more than their minds could carry. Yet before despair could take them, Kale stepped forward. His glowing eyes shone brighter than ever. "This world is not yours," he said with calm power. "It is under my guard. Leave, or face its people." The Zirith soldier tilted its head, then laughed in a hollow sound. "You are broken stone, Kale. We ended your people. You are nothing but dust." Kale lifted his hand, and light flared from his palm. A shield of golden energy formed before him, humming strong. Behind him, Nadia stepped forward, her crystal staff glowing in her hands. Amir followed, his shield bright. Yusef and the others raised their weapons, their eyes burning with new courage. The Zirith soldiers paused, surprised by the humans' defiance. To them, Earth had always been a silent, weak world. But here, before their eyes, humans stood with weapons of light, standing side by side with an ancient guardian. For the first time in their long conquests, the Zirith hesitated. And in that silence, the desert seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the first strike. The desert winds blew across the golden sands as silence held the two sides. On one side stood Kale and the small group of humans, their strange weapons glowing in their hands. On the other side stood the Zirith soldiers, tall and armored, their red eyes burning through their helmets. Above them, the massive ship of the invaders floated like a dark mountain in the sky. Nadia gripped her crystal staff tighter. Her heart pounded so loud she thought the soldiers would hear it. Yet she did not step back. She remembered Kale's words, humans were stronger than they believed. Her fear slowly changed into fire. The lead Zirith soldier raised his weapon. "This world is weak. You will fall quickly." Kale stepped forward, his golden shield glowing in front of him. "This world belongs to its people. And they are not weak." The soldier tilted its head as if amused. Then, with a sharp motion, it fired. A beam of red energy shot across the sands. The humans gasped, but Kale raised his shield, and the blast struck it with a flash of light. The shield held firm. "Now," Kale said calmly, his voice strong. "Show them your strength." Nadia leapt forward. Her staff blazed with blue light as she struck the sand. A wave of energy rippled outward, knocking two Zirith soldiers off their feet. Amir lifted his shield, blocking a second blast, then pushed forward, forcing the enemy back. Even Yusef, though trembling, fired his weapon. A bolt of white light shot out and struck one of the enemy soldiers, sending sparks across its armor. The battle began. The desert roared with light and sound as weapons clashed. The Zirith fought with precision, their beams slicing through the sand and stone. But the humans fought with something the Zirith did not expect: spirit. They moved together, covering one another, their fear slowly turning into courage. Nadia darted between the soldiers, her staff flashing as she struck their weapons aside. Each time she thought she might fall, she remembered her promise to herself: she would not hide. She would fight for her world. Amir used his shield to protect the others. He was not as quick as Nadia, but his steady arm blocked strike after strike. The glowing barrier in front of him never broke, and behind it the others found the strength to fight. Kale moved like a storm. Though weakened from centuries of sleep, he was still powerful. His hands blazed with golden light, and each strike from him sent Zirith soldiers flying back. He moved not only as a warrior but also as a teacher, guiding the humans with his words. "Stay close. Watch each other. Do not let them divide you." The Zirith, surprised by the resistance, grew harsher. More soldiers marched from their ships, their weapons ready. Soon the desert was filled with flashes of red and blue as the two sides clashed. Sand exploded into the air with each strike, turning the battlefield into a storm. At one point, a Zirith soldier cornered Yusef. The man froze, his weapon slipping from his hands. The soldier raised its blade, but before it could strike, Nadia rushed in, spinning her staff with both hands. She struck the soldier's chest with a burst of energy, sending it crashing backward. She reached down and pulled Yusef to his feet. "Do not give up," she told him firmly. "We fight together." Yusef nodded, his fear giving way to determination. He picked up his weapon again, and for the first time, his hands did not shake. The humans fought with growing strength, but the enemy was many. More ships descended, landing across the sands. Kale's face grew tense. He knew the Zirith would not stop. They would keep sending soldiers until the humans broke. Then he saw something that changed the battle. One of the Zirith ships landed too close to the pyramid. Its doors opened wide, its soldiers rushing out, leaving only a few to guard it. Kale turned quickly to Amir and Nadia. "The ship," he said. "If you can take it, the battle will change." Amir's eyes widened. "Take one of their ships? But we do not know how to fly it." "You will learn," Kale said firmly. "Humans learn faster than you believe." Nadia's eyes lit up with courage. She nodded without hesitation. "I will go." Amir looked at her, then at the battle raging around them. He knew it was dangerous, but he also knew she was right. If they captured a ship, they would show the Zirith that humans were not helpless. He placed his shield on his arm and said, "Then we go together." They dashed across the sands, beams of energy flashing around them. Yusef and the others covered them, firing at the soldiers who tried to block their path. Kale struck down 3 enemies in a burst of golden light, clearing the way. Nadia and Amir reached the ship. The entrance glowed red, but Nadia touched the panel near its door. To her shock, the strange symbols shifted, glowing blue under her hand. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the ship was filled with red light. The walls pulsed like veins, and the air hummed with strange energy. Amir looked around in amazement. "It feels alive." Nadia rushed to the front where a large seat and controls waited. She sat quickly, her hands hovering above the glowing symbols. The ship seemed to respond to her touch. The red lights turned softer, shifting to a pale blue. "Amir," she said with excitement and fear, "I think it knows me." Outside, the Zirith soldiers realized what was happening. They rushed toward the ship, firing wildly. But the humans outside fought harder, blocking them, pushing them back. Kale stood tall at the entrance, his shield blazing gold as he held the enemy off. Inside, Nadia pressed the symbols. The ship roared to life, its walls glowing brighter. The engines hummed, shaking the ground. Amir grabbed the side rail as the vessel lifted slowly into the air. The Zirith soldiers shouted in rage as the ship rose. Nadia gritted her teeth, her hands steady on the glowing controls. "We have it," she said, her voice full of fire. The humans outside cheered, their courage renewed. The sight of one of the enemy's ships lifting into the sky under human hands gave them new strength. Even Yusef shouted with pride as he fired his weapon. Kale smiled faintly. "Yes," he whispered. "This is the spirit of humanity." The captured ship turned in the sky, its weapons glowing. Nadia aimed carefully, then fired. A blast of blue energy shot out, striking one of the Zirith's own vessels. The enemy ship exploded in fire and dust, lighting the desert. The Zirith froze in shock. For the first time, their weapons were turned against them. And for the first time, they saw humans not as prey, but as fighters. The desert battlefield roared with new life. The war for Earth had begun, and the humans had taken their first true step. The captured ship hovered above the sands, glowing with a pale blue light. Nadia sat at the controls, her hands steady, her eyes burning with focus. Amir stood beside her, his shield ready in case the Zirith tried to break in. Outside, the desert was still alive with battle, but the humans no longer fought with only fear. They now fought with hope. Kale raised his golden shield and blocked a heavy strike from a Zirith commander. The clash shook the ground, sparks flying around them. The commander snarled in its strange tongue, pressing forward with raw power. But Kale held his ground. His shield did not break, and his eyes burned with the pride of seeing humans rise beside him. Nadia, Kale shouted as the commander pushed him back, use the ship's weapons. Show them what you can do. Nadia took a breath and pressed the glowing controls. The ship hummed louder, and beams of energy fired from its side. The blast struck the advancing Zirith soldiers, scattering them across the sands. For the first time, the invaders stumbled back, forced onto the defensive. The humans outside cheered. Their fear was gone now. Even Yusef, who had once dropped his weapon, now stood tall. His hands were steady as he fired bolt after bolt into the enemy lines. He shouted with pride, his voice carrying through the storm of battle. We can fight them. We can win. The Zirith, however, were not finished. More ships descended from the skies, their shadows stretching over the battlefield. From each one, fresh squads of soldiers marched forward, their glowing blades raised high. The air grew heavy with the sound of engines and war cries. Amir narrowed his eyes as he watched them approach. They will not stop. They will keep sending more until we fall. Nadia looked at him, her face pale but determined. Then we do not fall. She pressed her hands against the controls again, sending another wave of fire across the battlefield. The blast struck one of the descending ships, causing it to spin out of control and crash into the sands. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun. Kale smiled faintly as the ground shook. That is the spirit of your people. Not strength of body, but strength of heart. Still, the fight grew harder. The Zirith were many, and the humans were few. Their weapons were powerful, but they were not trained soldiers. The enemy pressed harder, surrounding them from every side. Kale realized something. This battle was not just about winning here in the desert. It was about proving that humans could stand and fight. If word spread that humans had taken an enemy ship, then across the world others would rise too. This was the spark, and it had to burn bright enough to light the whole planet. Hold your ground, Kale commanded. His voice was calm yet powerful. Every moment you stand here gives hope to others. Do not think of survival. Think of the future. The humans tightened their grip on their weapons. They no longer fought only for themselves but for every village, every family, every person who had ever lived under fear. Nadia guided the ship into the sky, firing again and again. Each blast shook the desert, striking down ships and soldiers. Yet she felt the strain. The ship answered her will, but it also drained her strength. Sweat dripped down her face, and her hands trembled. Amir placed his hand on her shoulder, steadying her. You are not alone, he said quietly. We will carry this together. She nodded, and her hands grew steady again. Outside, Kale clashed with the Zirith commander once more. The alien swung its blazing blade, striking against his shield with fury. Kale staggered but did not fall. He turned his shield and struck forward, sending the commander crashing back into the sand. Your kind does not understand, Kale said, his voice strong. Humans do not break. The battle raged on, but something began to change. The humans fought as one, their movements no longer clumsy. They had learned quickly, adapting in the heat of the fight. Each step, each strike, each shield block showed growth. The Zirith had expected an easy victory. Instead, they faced resistance unlike anything they had prepared for. Amir charged into the fray, his shield glowing as he knocked aside two soldiers at once. Yusef covered him, firing over his shoulder. 2 more villagers struck from behind, driving the Zirith back. They moved not as scattered fighters but as a single force. In the sky, Nadia turned the captured ship against the invaders again, firing blasts of blue light. One by one, enemy vessels fell, their wreckage burning across the sands. The desert that had once been silent now roared with fire and thunder. Still, the Zirith pressed on. The commander rose again, its armor cracked but its rage unbroken. It raised its weapon and shouted, its voice echoing through the battlefield. The Zirith soldiers rallied behind it, their red eyes burning brighter. Kale saw the danger. If the commander was not defeated, the soldiers would not stop. He looked at Nadia and Amir. The leader must fall. Without it, their army will falter. Amir gripped his shield. Then let us end this. The 3 of them moved together. Kale led the charge, his shield blazing gold. Amir followed, blocking strikes as they came. Nadia guided the ship overhead, firing beams to clear the path. The commander roared and met them head-on, its strikes heavy and fast. The clash shook the sands. Kale's shield cracked under the force, but he did not step back. Amir pushed forward, striking with his shield, forcing the commander to stumble. At that moment, Nadia fired the ship's main weapon. A beam of blue energy struck the commander directly, shattering its armor and sending it crashing to the ground. The Zirith army froze. Their leader lay broken in the sand, its weapon shattered. For the first time, their red eyes flickered with doubt. The humans stood tall, their weapons raised, their voices shouting together. This is our world. The desert grew still. The Zirith, confused and shaken, began to retreat. Their ships pulled back, lifting into the sky, carrying away the remaining soldiers. The battlefield fell quiet except for the crackle of fire and the heavy breaths of the fighters. Nadia lowered the ship slowly, her body trembling with exhaustion. She stepped out and looked at the others. They were bruised, tired, and dusty, but they were alive. More than that, they had won. Kale stood in the center of the sands, his golden shield broken but his eyes bright. Today you have shown them the truth, he said proudly. Humans are not prey. Humans are not weak. You are the spark of a fire that will spread across this world. Amir raised his shield high. We will fight for Earth. The others cheered, their voices rising like a storm. The battle was over, but Kale knew the war had only just begun. The Zirith would return with greater force. But now, humanity had shown that they could rise. They had taken their first step into a larger fight. And in that step, hope was born. The desert was quiet after the battle, but the silence was not empty. It carried the weight of victory. The bodies of broken machines lay across the sands, glowing faintly as their cores dimmed. The once proud Zirith had retreated, leaving behind the proof that they could bleed, that they could be defeated. Nadia stood on the ramp of the captured ship, the wind tugging at her hair. She looked across the battlefield and saw the faces of her people. They were dirty, bruised, and weary, but in their eyes was something brighter than gold. Hope. Amir leaned on his shield, his chest rising and falling heavily. He glanced at Nadia and gave a small smile. We did it. We actually did it. She nodded, though her voice was soft. Yes, but this is only the beginning. They will return. Kale walked forward, his golden shield broken at the edge but still shining faintly. His face was calm, yet his words carried power. She is right. The Zirith will not accept this defeat. They will send more, greater in number and strength. You have lit a fire, and they will try to smother it. Amir frowned. Then what do we do? How can a small village fight against an empire that controls the skies? Kale raised his hand to the desert horizon. You are not alone. Others will hear of this battle. They will hear that humans stood against the Zirith and lived. They will rise too. The power of humanity is not in one warrior or one weapon. It is in unity. If you stand together, the galaxy itself will tremble. The villagers listened, their tired faces turning to determination. Yusef, who once doubted, now stepped forward. He lifted his weapon and spoke with steady voice. Then we will carry this story. We will tell every village, every city, that the Zirith are not unstoppable. They can be beaten. The people nodded. For the first time in years, they felt not like victims but like warriors. Nadia looked back at the ship, its controls still glowing. This vessel can take us far. We can travel beyond the desert. We can reach others, spread the truth faster than word of mouth. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. Then it will be your voice, your courage, that spreads across your world. Lead them, Nadia. Show them what it means to be human. The days that followed were filled with movement. The villagers repaired their defenses, gathered supplies, and prepared for the road ahead. The captured ship became their beacon. Its blue light shone across the dunes, drawing curious eyes from distant lands. People traveled through the sands to see it for themselves, and when they heard the story of the battle, they stayed. Each day, more humans arrived. Farmers, hunters, wanderers, and traders all came. Some brought weapons of their ancestors, others brought only courage. They stood beside Nadia and Amir, offering their strength. Amir trained them with shields, showing them how to hold the line, how to trust the person beside them. Kale taught them ancient strategies, movements that could break stronger enemies. Nadia learned more about the ship, using it to scout the skies and send messages through the strange alien signals. Word spread fast. Across mountains, valleys, and cities, people whispered the same tale: the Zirith can fall. The humans can rise. Weeks later, the Zirith returned. This time, they did not send one commander but many. Their ships darkened the sky, their army stretched across the sands. They came with anger, determined to erase the spark before it became a flame. But the humans were ready. The once small village was now a camp filled with warriors. Shields lined the walls, weapons gleamed in the sunlight, and banners of cloth fluttered in the wind, painted with symbols of unity. Nadia stood at the front, her voice strong. This is not just a village anymore. This is the heart of our fight. Today we stand not for one place, but for all of Earth. Amir raised his shield. Together. Together, the humans roared back, their voices shaking the air. The battle began. The Zirith stormed forward, their blades glowing, their ships firing from above. But the humans did not scatter. They fought as one. Shields locked, weapons struck in rhythm, every man and woman standing firm. Nadia guided the ship overhead, blasting the skies and tearing through enemy lines. Amir led the shield wall, pushing back against the waves of armored soldiers. Kale moved with calm strength, striking with his shield and guiding the fighters where the line was weakest. The desert shook with war, but unlike before, the humans did not break. They pushed forward. Step by step, strike by strike, they drove the Zirith back. The invaders who once ruled the sands now felt the fear of those they had oppressed. One by one, their ships fell. One by one, their soldiers dropped their weapons. And when the sun set over the battlefield, the desert belonged not to the Zirith, but to humanity. That night, the camp was filled with firelight and voices. The people sang old songs, songs that had once been forgotten under fear but now returned with power. Children laughed again, elders smiled, and warriors sat tall with pride. Nadia sat quietly near the captured ship, her eyes on the stars. Amir joined her, sitting beside her in the sand. "You were right," he said softly. "This was only the beginning. But now, we are ready." She looked at him and then at Kale, who stood near the fire, his face glowing in the light. "What happens next?" she asked. Kale's golden eyes lifted to the stars. The Zurith Empire is vast, and their shadow stretches far beyond this desert. But your people have proven something tonight. You are not prey. You are not weak. You are the spark of a storm. He paused, then added, the galaxy will soon learn the name of humanity. Nadia smiled faintly. Then let them hear it. Months passed. The fire in the desert spread. Villages across the world rose in defiance. Cities once silent with fear became strongholds of resistance. The story of the forgotten mummy, the golden shield, and the humans who stood in the desert traveled from one corner of the earth to the other. The Zurith returned again and again, but each time they found not fear, but unity. They faced a world that refused to kneel. And in every battle, every song, every shield raised to the sky, the truth was clear. The forgotten mummy had awakened not just from a tomb, but in the hearts of a people who had once forgotten their strength. Humanity had remembered who they were. They were survivors. They were fighters. They were the children of Earth. And now, they were rising.